Hey, this is John Bohlinger with Premier Guitar. So when we normally do a factory tour, we're able to condense it into one easy to watch video. But when we went to Santa Cruz Guitars, there was so much information there that we have to break it into a few ones. We did the first part on just Richard Hoover and tone woods. But the second video you're watching now is getting into how Richard Hoover at Santa Cruz did a partnership with Stanford University, and it's all about determining the resonance and the proper use of tone woods. So Richard Hoover does what most luthiers do. They'll tap on wood, they'll listen to it, they'll find the sweet spot. But he's now combining this with these deep scientific analysis and finding not only where the wood should go, but like he now can say, okay, this is the back on a parlor. This is the top on a dreadnought. And it's really interesting to see a combination of old school luthier techniques combined with modern science. So with no further ado, here's Santa Cruz Part 2.
What I'm going to show you, I shamelessly say this is truly the secret of the success of the master violin makers like Stradivari. And again, the punchline is assembling this top of agreeable frequencies rather than random notes.
Yeah.
Just like a chord on a piano, the agreeable frequencies allow it to sustain, develop rich, full, colorful overtones. It sounds good, right? And that's right. Achievable. If you were to do it with traditional manufacturing methods, which is to get your price down, you need to have a design, make your components precisely or close to accurate sizes so they can only fit one way in assembly stations.
Sure.
Easy to train somebody, easy to get the cost down and be profitable. But wood is not homogeneous, and you take 10 pieces exactly the same size, they'll ring at random frequencies. Wow. Right? I like this analogy. A xylophone out of metal, a homogeneous material, you can actually machine to numbers and play in tune. But a marimba, on the other hand, out of wood, is like, ugh, it's so awful. You have to go back, shorten one, hollow one out a little bit, and tune it, right?
Right.
So same thing with the guitar. We have subjective things, again, EQ, for example, clarity, projection, that people choose themselves, but everybody wants sustained, rich, full, colorful overtones. And that's something that happens at random in mass production. If you throw enough rocks at a piano, what we talked about before, you could get a chord occasionally, but also you get this whole progressive range of partial harmony.
Sure.
So you go from one you hope you don't get to, that's pretty good, and everybody can be delighted with their guitar. But the one that you're at the festival and go, oh, you got to hear this old Martin, man, it's great. How come there's one?
Right.
That you go to. How come not all? Well, it's intentional, and I'll show you how to do that. So that's what I'm going to do right now,
okay,
is show you that process. So as you recall from our previous discussion, the wood's going to contribute the level of clarity, bright, clear, dark, articulate, dark, warm, blended. This is Adirondack spruce, bright, clear, articulate, in a dreadnought, a bluegrass dreadnought. Because in the modern style of playing, people want single line leads, clarity, and so forth, and this is going to have a great clear sound. So to start doing this, making a chord out of this, and to get this to perform right, this ended up at 3.2 millimeters. That wasn't our target. That's what it happened to be once we got all the information here that we need, and it came alive.
Wow.
We also need the integrity to hold the strings, mind you, but that's doable. I get it from what I learned from the violin making tradition, and now with our modal analysis, we can actually capture it. It makes it much more easy to teach somebody and verify that they're getting it. And this, I hope this will get all over the world into cheap guitars, and we'll all have more fun. So this is for, let's find out here. It's for a right-handed player. Yeah, so we're starting to work on the EQ here. I mean, this most likely was. We do make left-handed. What we did is we made it about 2 to 4/10 of a millimeter thinner on the bass than the treble, depending on how far apart we want our sliders on our graphic equalizer. This we want predominant bass, so it's probably about 4/10 of a millimeter thinner on this side, and we can hear that already in this tone. So when we brace it, we're using a real traditional X brace because it's the sound people are used to. We could brace this and show through scientific measurement that it was better, but people don't like the sound. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard Schneider, one of the most brilliant makers ever, followed Michael Kosch's earth-shaking study on acoustics and how it applies to guitars, and he could show you and he could prove it was better sounding, but people are like, yeah.
Right.
So we use the X, and we're going to start here. We're going to work on EQ, and the EQ of this is going to be done by how we manipulate the mass, and we've got two different configurations. If you can see here how these are shaped.
Yes.
If we stiffen something up, it's going to promote high frequencies. If we loosen it up, it's going to promote low frequencies. So on this right-handed guitar, and we're upside down, the treble is tighter, the bass is more flexible, but we can work that here by, on this scallop brace one. By the way, scallop bracing is full of folklore. It's what Martin did pre-World War II, and so many people would argue to the death that it's better. All it does is boost the bass in the EQ. That can be real impressive, right? It doesn't make the guitar louder, but it makes the bass louder. So what we've done on the treble is to remove this material here, really taking the stiffness out of this and dropping the treble volume. On this side, the scalloping makes the mid-range and bass much more flexible, boosting the bass. So our EQ is like really predominant in the bass. There's another one that people be familiar with. The pre-war Martins had an advanced or a forward shifted X brace, where this juncture here was actually further north towards the sound hole. That brought the legs of the X up higher, opening up much more flexibility down here and boosting the bass. So pre-war guitars sound better because it's old wood. It sounds better because the tensions have relaxed in the instrument, but also they were bassier because of that shift. This is almost like the bass slider on the EQ to do that.
Wow.
So that's where we're going to range our EQ. A bigger body size also will boost bass, and in the case of a bluegrass dreadnought, a modern bluegrass dreadnought, where you don't want the big woolly whoopy sound when it was a rhythm guitar earlier, you want more articulate nature. We want to bring that bass down a little bit. Okay, we can work this to do that, but that's what happens when you change the size of the sound hole. And boy, there's a lot of folklore. Hermann Helmholtz, a game-changing acoustic physicist in the early part of the last century, did the definitive study on apertures on resonating chambers. And here's the mouthful. When you enlarge the aperture on a resonating chamber, you raise the fundamental pitch of the chamber. That will accentuate in a guitar mid-range and treble. Right? It brings the mid-range and treble up, brings the guitar into a more even EQ. Now again, people on the internet would shoot you and argue that no, it is the opposite. It makes it big and bassy or louder.
Yeah.
No, and you can do that experiment really easily on your guitar. Take like a blow-in card in a magazine or a 3x5 card, and you cover the sound hole and you tap behind the bridge and you listen. And as you open it up, the note goes down.
Wow.
I'm sorry, the note goes up. As you open it up, the note goes up. As you close it, the note goes down.
Up in like the pitch or up in
yeah, frequency.
Okay.
Yeah, the note. And so if the resonating chamber is a higher frequency, it'll act to higher frequencies when you play the guitar, and the opposite. So that's why on a little guitar that may be lacking in bass because of the small airspace, we do a smaller sound hole to boost the bass.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is.
And luckily, that's established science, not my opinion. And you know, here I always say this: I promise you, I'm not going to do opinions in this talk. I'm going to tell you exactly what the science says. And if you ask me something I don't know, I'll warn you that I'm going to give you an opinion.
Yeah.
So now we've got the tone, the level of clarity from the choice of wood. We've got the EQ from how we treated this. But remember, we want this in tune. And let's start here. I got an example of, even though these are real boxy, this represents what we do if we're trying to get a good price, because you can build any guitar sounds good, you know. You can write a song and fall in love or change the world. But to make it really deep, full, exquisite, you have to have that in tuneness. This one could be anything, right? We haven't tuned it. We just glue these braces on. They're just sizes, and so they're random. And if we made 100 guitars with the same wood, exactly the same shape, they'd be all over that scale of sustain and complexity. So let's listen to it. Not very hollow. That's even better. It's not working. It dies quickly. And if we listen to each of these notes, we're going to find some that ring freely because the wavelength just happens to miss everything else, and some that are dead because they're crashing to opposing frequency or so. Inharmonicity. So let's listen here. Hear that difference? Listen here. Dead, dead. All of a sudden it's kind of colorful, hollow, and it sustains a little bit. That is a frequency that's missing all the rest and ringing freely. And as we go on, we'll find variants. Now, if we had 100 of these, you'd find maybe one would have 4 of them that rang true, 2 of them rang true. But if you set enough rocks at a piano, you might get one that's just right, right? The one you hope you'll buy. Instead, when we carve this for the EQ, we're going to tune these to make them all work together, or all in harmony. And let's take this one here. So let's listen to this one.
Wow.
Music, huh?
Yeah.
And we listen to each of these notes.
Wow.
It's hard to hit these uniformly. They're all, it's music.
Yeah.
They all work together.
So,
and this is going to be, there's no question about this, is going to be a great sounding guitar.
well, can you get these to ring like that?
Yeah, we will. This is an example of an untuned one, right? Like we would if we were making mass-produced guitars in a hurry. They all sound okay, but to get this, as you shape these, you have to actually tune them.
So,
right?
so to get this to that point, your luthiers are listening and adjusting the whole time?
That's right. Wow. And not luthiers, plural. This is really specialized, and it's really hard to teach. And some people just don't get it. It's like, you know, some people whistle, some people can't.
Yeah, you'd have to have some real musicality to get it.
And it's focus. It doesn't have to do with how smart you are. It has to do with the focus and your sensitivity, and that's the genetic, roll of the dice. Yeah. So this is done now by hand, and it always will be, but with the aid of remote analysis, you can have a lot of a head start.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's great to have the science confirm what your ear's telling you.
No kidding. So that, again, was a secret of consistency with the violin makers. Wow, that sounds great. Yeah, it did, and it was on purpose. It wasn't by chance. So, you know, every couple of years we hear a news story about how, oh, they discovered the secret of the Stradivari violin. It was the this extinct pigeon in Vienna, and they used the white part of the poop to make the the varnish. There could be a lot of that, but that's not what it was. And now you know. Also, they used old wood.
Sure.
You know, when they did that. So now we have not only a great sounding guitar, but we have those personal choices in sound that somebody wants, right?
Okay. Well, okay. Like, for instance, once you get your top tuned perfectly, you've made all the adjustments, but then you've got a neck and back, and isn't that going to change it?
No, it'll wreck it. Yeah, you could waste all of your time here. So I'm going to show you that. Okay. Because there's another step we have to do to make sure of that. The top is beautiful, but we're going to put it on a body. We're going to add a note. We're going to add the note of that airspace. And imagine this, you play a beautiful chord on a grand piano in a concert hall, and everybody's heart swells, you know? Yeah. And then a little kid comes up behind you and bangs a random key. That's what the airspace is. Yeah. And it could be in tune, but not likely. Right. And it'll kill that. And the idea is we have to tune those again, right? And then the neck will do a different thing. If you don't follow through, you're wasted your time.
Right.
On this.
Yeah, it's every step.
Yeah. Now, you see Forrest taking the gluing pressure down off these. These are not fixed clamps because we will move the bases of the braces around. But it's to control EQ, not tuning. And this is a universal arrangement. And this is really common today for gluing down braces. I saw it first in an old woodcut. It was England in the 1500s, and the woodcut was showing different trades, you know, glass blowing, candle making, and the harpsichord makers were using this to put their braces down. Right?
So you learned this from a woodcut from the 1500s?
Yeah.
God, that's great.
It's funny, yeah. Nobody's self-made, you know, they're lying if they say that. It's like the influences. I was lucky enough to get the genes that make me a real good noticer. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do is take you over to the next step. We're going to tune the top body and the airspace in there. But any questions while we're still here?
Well, I guess the only question I had when you're tuning, is there a particular note you're looking for?
Yeah.
I mean, like if I was going to do it, I'd like it in G.
You know, it's fun. It's fun to have like mystery and so forth. Yeah. And even if you know all the science, it's no less magical. But here's the deal: if this was, I'm going to tell you this. Suppose I read this. Supposedly somebody asked Stradivari, "What note do you tune your violin to?" And he goes, "To the note no one will ever play." Ooh. And he meant it. Think of this. If this was tuned to a G, right? If you probably basically get a G chord out of it. Yeah. When you played a G note or a G chord, this would be shockingly loud. In the violin, they call it a woof note, and they really want to avoid that because it's distracting. Sure. But if you took that G and turned it, you know, if we took two notes as 100 cents and turned it 25 cents, not 50 cents, because that would be a sharper flat. You turn it 25 cents, and that's the note no one will ever play, and this will play evenly. Isn't that cool?
God, that is so good. So everything resonates.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what those notes are; they're in harmony, and that's just the distance in cycles between one note and the next that makes it go together.
I get it now. Yeah.
Now that's the thing. You know, I can explain this. I don't know if my terminology is correct yet, but it's repeatable. I know it works. Huh. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
That's great.
What,
All right.
What fun.
Let's see the next step.
Okay. Oh, by the way, here's a good example of nobody knows what to ask for in their own guitar.
Sure.
You know, this will be really confusing, but you'll know from watching them play and talking to them and your experience of talking to 100,000 people what's right for them, right?
Yeah.
So you can get all this the way they want.
Right. Okay, so you've got your top perfectly tuned.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you make all that jive with the rest of the guitar? What do we do next?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And a lot of people don't know this. People will spend time, tap tuning is the common term, but if they don't follow up, you're going to add new frequencies to your beautiful chord, and if they're random, anything could happen.
Sure.
I'll show you an example of that. So here we are. This top, as you know, is in tune. It sounded rich, full, colorful, a lot of sustain, and we glue it to the body and we create a new note, which is the airspace. That's the first random note. It's random because we're woodworkers, we're not machinists. You can't work accurately enough to control that note. So this is still in tune. This won't change. What do? We're going to first let's listen. Where does sustain go? I said this before, but let me repeat it. We have a beautiful chord here, like a grand piano in an auditorium, really moving, a rich, full, and then a little kid comes up behind you and bangs a random key. If it happens to be in tune or close to in tune, you're fine, but that's not likely to happen.
Yeah.
It's likely going to kill all the sustain because everything is going to be out of tune. So you hear here, the sustain's gone, doesn't even sound very hollow.
Yeah.
I'll show you what happens, then I'll explain. We're going to tune these together. We can't change this, we can't change this, but we can change this. When we glue this together, the binding on and so forth, we're going to have to sand this, get rid of pencil lines and scratches, and when we sand, remember from our top tuning, it's going to make it more flexible and it's going to lower the frequency. These are all going to stay in unison, right? They're going to stay as a chord and they're going to drop in frequency together and we'll stop when it matches that. Okay,
wow.
So let's listen here.
Wow, what a difference. That's like a drum. The whole thing just rings.
Now that hollowness is a simple way to put it, but it is inspiring, it's moving, it's color, it's rich, it's full, it lasts a long time, and again, nobody's going to get a ticket to watch you throw rocks at a piano, and if you suffer through it, but when people experience music and move them so much, it can help you to fall in love or cause you to go out and march in the street for a cause,
Yeah, right.
And that's it. Now, that happens in production-made guitars, but randomly. Like
Sure.
I said, the throwing rocks at a piano, you get a chord every once in a while. This is certainty because we did the work, because we stand on the shoulders of giants in the violin tradition that didn't tell each other for whatever reason, probably a good one, and as we share information with each other, we could do that and nail it.
So that the way you got that to ring in tune is by removing wood through sanding.
Yeah, you have it's hard to visualize this, but you got notes in harmony. Remember, we could turn that 25 cents and it's still in harmony. Mm-hmm. It's between a sharp and a flat, but it's still in harmony. And here, we're lowering those in unison, in harmony, and we stop when and it's not a measurement of harmonicity, you hear it. And I can do it by feeling how much air blows on my face.
Wow.
Practice is a cool thing. Isn't that nice?
That's amazing.
So at this point, There's no question at all. This is going to be a spectacular sounding guitar, and it's going to have all those things that the player wants personally in it. So no chance.
Okay, so how about when you add the neck? Is that going to...
Let's go and take a look.
Okay.
I introduced Jacob. Jacob's going to both help somebody get everything they want in a neck. That could be shape, scale length, width between the strings at the nut, at the neck joint, and all these of course are personal choices that are right, but in the mass market you can only go so far, right? For price considerations, people are going to have a few designs that are CNC'd. We have to do stuff by hand to get any combination somebody wants. And you'll see here we have a peg head that's all done, but the rest of it isn't. And one of the things here is to make sure we protect our most valuable asset, which is our hands and our skills. And with that, we'll invest heavily in robots and automatic machinery to do something that's the same every time, like that peg head and the holes that go in. But the artistry and discernment come into carving this neck, which you'll do. So here we have a combination of CNC and handwork. And we've also cut the dovetail joint and the truss rod cavity. Now, the dovetail joint is the subject of a lot of controversy. Does it make the guitar sound better or worse? Here's what it does. When we put a neck on the body, it's not going to change its in-tuneness, but it's going to do something.
Sure.
You know, when you drive the strings and create the energy, where does it go? Does it go out? Does it go behind? Go everywhere? It depends on the mass that's in the neck. So think of an old art top guitar, which was designed to be kind of a rhythm in a big band. Each note was a different chord, and it had to cut through all the orchestra and do that chunk, 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 chunk. And to get that to happen and project well, they used a real heavy maple neck, a silly big peg head, and comically heavy gears, right?
Yeah.
It totally blocked any vibration from the body from chimney up the neck, and it's put it all out the F-holes to do it. If we had a maple neck, slotted peg head, light open back gears, this is going to allow vibration to chimney into the neck, and it's going to become part of the resonant surface, and it's going to really get nice open airy ambience, which is great for singer-songwriter, either acoustically performing or even in recording, to get that nice open sound. So really the weight, the mass in the neck, you can control the presence if you use an integral connection like the dovetail. If you're not going to bother with that, this will waste your time. So what's better or worse? This is essential for us. But somebody going for, again, price target, no, you don't have to, customers have to pay for this, right? Because it wouldn't make any difference. The idea here is to get not only a custom feel, custom function, but a custom sound. And that's, I call it presence. It's the projection of the guitar. Where does it go? The curved linings in the guitar, if they're resonant, it'll carry the energy of the top to the player as it transfers through the top to the sides and back. If it's inert, doesn't take resonance, it will keep the vibration in the top, it'll project forward. So there's a lot of ways to control that presence, including this.
God, every little detail affects it.
So neck's important.
Oh.
Neck's important. And now you know why the dovetail isn't better or worse. It's the context where it's better or worse.
Right. Well, and about your scale length and the custom shop, I know that you have done many different scales. In fact, you've gotten very small. I mean, like 23 and one of your signatures is like 23 and change.
Crazy.
Yeah. But I love that that's what they wanted and you did it.
It is. Now, again, custom. A lot of I've been guitarists for people my age mostly since I was like 18, right?
Yeah.
We've grown up together. And a lot of people, you know, we made successive guitars for Tony Rice because he suffered repetitive stress and he needed less tension. So we made, you know, each successive guitar a little shorter scale because it takes less tension to bring the string up to pitch with a shorter scale. So it's easier to play. The frets are closer together, so you don't have quite the stretch. And I'm going to say the concern about it being not as loud as a long scale, technically the physics would dictate, yeah, it's not as much volume. However, you build a sensitive guitar, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't avoid the advantage of the facility for worry about sound, at least in our style.
Right. Well, and particularly with like Tony Rice. I mean, God.
Yeah,
Just-
and we do, you know, it's crazy because, again, if you're price conscious, it's silly to have all these choices because a lot of them have to be done by hand
Yeah.
to get it. Now, neck shapes, we do, like, say the Tony Rice model or any of our signature models, it's only ethical not to customize that because it's what the artist wanted. So the necks are all the same. And for those, it's also unethical to have somebody shorten the life of the wrist by carving it. We can do that on CNC. Right. So we're a crazy mix of old-fashioned craft and robots.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
That's right.
That's great.